Hello, everyone, and hi there, Lauren Cadillac, attorney Lauren Cadillac. How are you today?
I'm very well. How about yourself?
I am well. It's good seeing you outside of KHVN Heaven 97 Radio. I'm so glad that you accepted the invite to connect about a very, very important subject.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
happy to be here. And I'm actually in my office today and away from my kitchen. So that is very refreshing for me as well.
I understand. So I have my hi Facebook fam. We have to do this the old-fashioned way to connect because um, this system will not allow me to connect my Zoom to Facebook. It keeps saying an error, but I felt this was such an important subject about generational wealth and holding on for our heirs. This is so important. It's kind of like a subject, an elephant in the room. Nobody really wants to talk about death. Nobody really wants to talk about how death and real estate can collide, and how it can be beautiful, how it can be rewarding, but then how it could be devastating and really split up families. So we're going to talk about it today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rosalind Booker, aka Roz B. As Roz B. I'm the principal broker of Arbrook Realty. I'll be sharing just a little bit myself about generational wealth and how real estate, is a single most way to do that. A lot of millionaires, billionaires, they are such by purchasing real estate. I'd like to introduce again Miss Lauren Cadillac with Cadillac Law, and she's going to talk about some very important subjects. We're going to cover today with her why we need an estate plan to guarantee generational wealth. How can we do estate planning without a will? And how can we avoid probate after we pass? So Lauren, I'm going to go ahead and have you just take the floor, honey. Do as much or little as you want. We got about 35, 40 minutes here. And I'll just chime in where need be.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, I am an attorney here in Dallas. My office that I'm actually in right now is in Oak Cliff. When I set out to be on my own in my own solo practice, I wanted to help people who were typically underserved and gone without help. And I have an extensive real estate background. I got my first real estate sales license when I was 19 in the state of Arizona. And real estate has always been a big part of my life. So it was no surprise when I opened my firm's doors that quite a few real estate clients would come in. The thing is I quickly learned that when people were calling me thinking they had a real estate issue, what they actually had was a probate issue. So the call goes like this: Hi, my mom had a house. What do you mean had? Well, she's passed away. Oh, okay. So we don't have, it is a real estate issue, but technically it's considered probate in the legal world. So
Yes.
um, I learned really quickly how many families, particularly in Oak Cliff, West Dallas, South Dallas, had gone without doing this planning, without thinking about these things. And since then, I have been doing seminars related to this topic.
Yeah.
At one of those seminars once, I had a woman who, she was probably in her mid 70s. And she said, I'm just so mad my parents left me this situation. And I said, oh, no. Please don't be mad at your parents. When was your mom born? 1902, and she's an
Yeah.
African-American woman. Segregation's a thing. There just wasn't access to people on this side of the bridge in Dallas in particular to this information. So we can't be mad at those who didn't have the access, who couldn't take these steps to ensure that it would be an easy transition to their heirs upon their passing. But what we can do is correct those problems and then also plan for our own futures and avoid it for our heirs. And so with that woman, I told her the important thing, don't be mad at your parents, please. Be mad at them for a million other reasons, not this one. And let's make sure your child doesn't have those same feelings or run into these same problems. So,
Right,
uh,
right.
that being said, people hear about wills, they've heard the word probate, but I don't think people really understand what that means. So
No,
in the state of Texas,
yeah, go ahead and explain that.
okay, I can only explain Texas law, just
Okay.
as an aside. So if anyone's watching from out of Texas, thank you, I appreciate it, but this probably won't apply to you.
Got you.
So in Texas, when someone has passed away, if they have debts, there has to be a probate. And a probate is a legal action where you go in front of a judge, a probate judge in Dallas County. We have actual probate judges. And you say, here are the person's heirs and here's what they own. And then an executor is appointed and the estate is, debts are paid, the estate is divided.
So I'm going to be interjecting and chiming in. So this debt, whether it be a mortgage, whether it be hospital bills, whether it be student loans, look, credit cards, debt, are you talking about all debt?
Yes, any debt. So
debt passes on to the heirs?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Debt, no, not at all. A lot of people are like, well, am I going to be taking on her debts? No, you do not have a contractual relationship with those people. She did.
Okay.
Debt stays with the estate.
The estate
is all of the property, assets, and debts owned by the decedent, the person that passed away.
Gotcha.
Okay. So when there is, now typically, Roz, when I have folks, when their parents have passed away much older in age, into their 80s and 90s, there's not a lot of debt. And so we can circumvent probate a lot of times. But let's say someone like me, I have student loans, I have a mortgage, I have some small credit card debt. My business has a line of credit, that I'm a guarantor on, those sorts of things. My children will have to go through a probate process to let the people I owe money to know that I've passed away. And if they want to make a claim, here's who you have to notify. So not all people have to go through probate. And there are ways to avoid probate, even if you have debts, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But I just want to establish that probate is it's a court action. So the government is involved. People, I think they forget really easily that the courts are actually part of our government. Okay. So the government then becomes involved, and now the government dictates some of your life in a way, right? And so to me, I like to avoid government control over me at all costs. So not just the fact that probate can take a really long time, especially in Dallas County, that it can be disputed, those kind of things. I try to avoid probate just because I don't like government intervention.
Right. And you're getting to how we can avoid probate.
So I'm getting to some techniques, yes. So a lot of folks will come into me and they own their home outright, and maybe let's say they have a nephew or a child that is living with them and caring for them, at their old age and the end of their life. And they say, I have 3 kids, but this one's been staying here and maintaining the home and my life. I want to make sure they get my house. We can do, and again, there's no mortgage on this house, right? So we can, what we can do is have the person sign a ladybird deed. A ladybird deed is similar to a transfer on death deed. If you're familiar with those, Roz.
I'm not.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
This is educational.
Oh, good. Okay, so transfer on death deed actually used to be codified. So they had the language of what you needed in the deed in the code, but they took the code out this last session. And so we as attorneys have discussed, like, does this mean the TODD doesn't exist, or what? What we've kind of concluded is if you have a transfer on death deed from prior to the law changing, you're fine. But moving forward, we're just going to use ladybird deeds. So what this does, and let's use you and I as an example, Roz.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I get really sick. I don't know, my kids aren't talking to me for some reason. And you step in and you come help me out. And I say, Roz, I know I'm terminal, but I'm forever indebted to you. And in this scenario, my house is paid off. Okay, so it's obviously not real life. I'm forever indebted to you. So I sign a Ladybird deed, which says, Lauren, me, I keep this house. It's mine. I can encumber it. I can sell it. I can paint it. I can do whatever I want with it. It's mine until the moment I die. And at the moment I die, it becomes Roz's. Then, Roz, once I've passed away, all you have to do is take my death certificate, go to an attorney, get an affidavit of death. They'll attach the death certificate to it. We record that, and now the house is yours, free and clear, no questions asked. I love Ladybird deeds.
Attorney Lauren Cadillac. I have never heard of such a thing. And I've been in real estate 24 years. Let me tell you, this is valuable information. And the people who are on Facebook, if you have questions, please type them in and I will make sure Lauren can see and fill those questions. But let me tell you what traditionally has happened is that we run into, at title time, when they do the title search for something like this, it's like, where is the will?
Right.
And was the real will probated?
Bingo.
And if the will hasn't been probated, look, the alternative to that, and I know you're getting there, is this heirship affidavit where there's 27 people still living that's tied to this person who's deceased. And you mean to tell me we got to get a signature and an approval and they hate my guts?
Right.
And we're going to fight. So we can't even sell this property. So I'll let you go ahead and speak to that.
So let me just tell you right now, so many people tell, well, my daughter's not going to. Oh, my son this. No. Roz, the minute you pass away, your heirs, your nieces, your nephew, people you never even talked to think they hit the damn lottery. Well, she owned a house. Yeah, well, that house is worth $30,000 in South Dallas. You know, like, okay, there's 10 of you. You're really gonna fight? I'm gonna get the house. The lawyer's gonna get the house. And so, so before we get to affidavit of heirship, now, affidavit of heirship is a way to settle a real estate, to settle a probate, so to speak, if the person's died without a will and they don't have a mortgage. But to the Ladybird point, it would be much easier if the person before they died had called me and I could write up the Ladybird deed and I could go take it to them, watch them sign it, notarize it, record it, and then it's no questions asked. The other thing I like about the Ladybird deed, it is harder to fight. So if I pass away and Roz, I told you I wanted you to have the house. I don't like my kids. They're totally ungrateful. When I pass away, the code, the statute, the actual code will, if I don't have a will, the code will determine who gets what. Under the code, my kids are getting everything. And so you, Roz, would have to go prove that the code should be overlooked in that situation and so on and so forth. That is a very uphill battle. But if I had done this Ladybird deed to you, it's going to be my children who have to make the argument that I didn't mean to give you the Ladybird deed. And that's going to be the uphill battle for them. So okay. I like Ladybird deeds because they help minimize disputes. And to me, and I know everyone, no, my kids aren't going to fight.
Right.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Did they fight growing up? Did they fight growing up? If the answer to that is yes, then the answer to are they going to fight when you're dead is also yes. Okay. We're siblings. That's what we do.
We have a question from Talina. How much would a Ladybird deed cost? Is there a difference between them coming to your office versus you making a home visit?
So the answer on the home visit would be it depends on where the home is. I through Oak Cliff, no problem. I'll drive whatever. If the home is, outside of a 5 mile radius of me, then I probably would have to do a small charge just for gas. And, of course, my time of driving. I typically charge $350 for Lady Bird Deed. And the reason that it costs that is because I am basically doing your probate before you die, right?
Yeah.
And if that's your only asset, and for a lot of folks that is the only asset, right? Your home is your asset.
Right.
It's literally an estate settlement. So now probate, on the other hand, if it's not disputed, so your kids aren't fighting each other, they're going along with what the code says, whatever, $3,000. And that's just for my fees. That doesn't include filing fees or the ad litem. So you're looking really more about $4,000 to $5,000. So I'm charging $350 to do a Lady Bird deed, and that's going to be saving your heirs about $5,000 in time. Yes. Wow. So with the Lady Bird deed, Roz, on the day I died, you, well, of course, you have to wait 3 weeks to get this, right? But technically, you become the owner. As soon as you have this and we record the affidavit of death, you can sell it. So literally the day after I die.
Is there a waiting period?
No. As soon as that affidavit of death is recorded, it belongs to whoever was named in the Lady Bird deed. So you could, the day after I die, it'd be a little tacky, but you could do it. You could call the realtor, you could put a sign in my front yard, and then as soon as my death certificate got to you, you could close on the sale of the house. Now, let's say you die, no Lady Bird deed, no will, no trust. Your children might be able to do, or your heirs might be able to do an affidavit of heirship. However, typically, and now I think it's a little different, but as recently as 1.5 years ago, title companies would require 5 years of having that affidavit of heirship in the deed records before they would issue title insurance on it. Because the affidavit, so when we go to probate and there's no will, we have to move for an ad litem. What that is a separate attorney that represents the estate and any unknown or incapacitated heirs, okay? And the ad litem's job is to find your heirs. So Roz, with you and me, that's not a really difficult thing, right? We're women, people know when we were pregnant, we raise our babies, right, easy peasy. But sometimes if you have a man like my dad, we like to call them a rolling stone. He has, and this is quote, exactly. Yeah. He has 9 children that I know of.
So let me ask this, Lauren. Is it just to the extent of the heirs that are children, or does husbands of those children?
No. Well, so in Texas is a community property state, right? Community property is everything that is earned during a marriage or a common law marriage. However, always separate of community property is gifts, inheritance, and a couple other things you owned before, car accidents, just a few random. So anytime you're married, and I had a friend growing up, her parents, she is the reason that I tell my children they're getting nothing when I die, because she actually told me once that she was waiting for her parents to pass so she could be rich.
Wow. So no. For that reason right there, do you think that's why wills, probates, these things like you're talking about is so hush-hush? Is because people don't want their family to either off them, pay to get them off, or,
I think that's part of it. But Roz, I mean, really, we're talking about right now when we die. And it is a very human thing to not want to die. And it's a human thing to, say, oh, well, I'm not going to die. It's not going to be me. I'll be 90 or what. And that's just human nature. And so I get that. And I get that this is a semi-morbid topic, right? But none of us worked as hard as we work to obtain the things we have and that kind of thing. just to have it lost after we pass away. Or in my mind, even worse is my kids spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a lawyer to fight about my stuff, my stuff.
So you're saying in essence, let's turn this around and make it a end of life planning party so that the kids and family members still love each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there could certainly be that. You know, I understand there's some folks who just don't want to talk. They don't trust their children. I've been on the other side of the V from people like that. I get it. But if you don't want to have those conversations with your adult children, that's fine. Have those conversations with someone responsible that you're going to put the onus of making those decisions on. Right. So choose, you know, I always say if my son actually becomes a doctor, he'll be my medical power of attorney. Until then, it's my sister who wanted to be a doctor because that's as close as I can get to someone with a medical degree. If my daughter becomes an accountant, she'll be my durable power of attorney because I know she'll know how to pay my bills and budget my money and all of those kind of things. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be my best friend. Currently, because my children are minors, my power of attorneys are literally my best friend and sister. So
let's talk about real quick the will. How does a will work pertaining to property, and how does the will work pertaining to this ladybird deed? Does one supersede?
Yeah, the ladybird deed controls. So if you wrote a will and you were going to give everything to both your kids, and then 5 years later you got sick and one kid moved in and you did a ladybird deed, and then you didn't update your will, the kid with the ladybird deed is still the owner. The will is secondary. And wills are secondary to contracts in the state of Texas as well. So that means if you have an account with a beneficiary, your beneficiary form is considered to be a contract between you and the life insurance company or the bank or whoever it is. So, and contracts come before wills. So beneficiary forms are controlling. So you want to make sure you're looking at who your life insurance beneficiaries are every 5 years tops, or anytime you have a major life event. Yeah.
Yes.
So you can't will those items. Now, so a will is mainly going to be for tangible property, maybe a couple of non-beneficiary type accounts. But a will has to be probated. Like the will doesn't just resolve the estate, right? Like you have to take the will and go to a judge and have the judge look at it and have everybody who's listed gets notified. The kids get notified even if they're not listed, and there's a whole judicial process. I prefer to avoid all of that and avoid issues with step or half children. A lot of issues can arise. All of that can be circumvented by using a trust. So what I like to do is I have this for myself. I have a trust. I am the trustee. I manage everything in the trust because it's my stuff, right? However, I have payable on death to the trust. The trust is the beneficiary to my insurance policies, and the trust owns my home. My home, if you look up Lauren Cadillac in DCAD, you're not going to find me because my home is in a trust name. I can still get my homestead benefit. I can still get my 65 plus when I reach that point. But when I pass away, everything's going to be distributed according to the trust. Period.
Okay, so let me recap. So will the trust supersede the will?
That would depend.
And okay, that would depend. And the ladybird deed. Okay.
So assuming the ladybird deed is signed and recorded properly,
yes,
that controls.
That controls. Okay.
Period. Okay. In order to put real estate into a trust, you have to deed it to the trust. So if I did a ladybird deed to you, but then I decided to put my house into the trust and I recorded my trust deed second, your
Yeah,
ladybird deed would be invalidated.
I see.
So there's a lot of, it depends, right? There's a lot of nuances
Okay.
in the law.
So I'm just going to suggest people give you, you're going to leave your number. I'm suggest people give you a call. Do you give consultations?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I give seminars on this. I give consultations.
Yes.
I can tell you doing a trust with me and putting your property into it will cost you less than a probate. So it will cost you less than it will your heirs to probate. So the will you have to probate, or you can do what is called muniment of title, which I don't want to get into great detail on.
I actually had a property that had a homeowner had to do that monument, that part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being okay, but it was tricky.
Yes, yes. Well, it involves the courts. So if you learn anything from this talk, I hope it's that you don't want the government involved in your life in any way, shape, or form, even after your life's over. Okay.
Right.
So, so your monument, you have to run through the court, all that. If you have a trust, there's a clause in there that says, when I die or become incapacitated, this person is the trustee. Unless they can't do it, then this person will be the trustee, right? So for me, if I'm incapacitated, my sister, who's really good with money, she then becomes in charge of my trust. She makes sure my mortgage paid, you know, that my kids are fed, and she can use my trust to the benefit of the beneficiaries. And the beneficiary of my trust is currently me, right? Mm-hmm. But if I die, the beneficiaries are my children. Children cannot inherit. So my kids being under 18 I can't give them a ladybird deed. If I die, there has to be a special trust or something set aside for them. Children cannot inherit. So if you have minor children, a trust is absolutely the way to go. And another thing that's great about trust, Roz, is you can do things like, if my daughter doesn't go to UT Austin and maintain a 2.45 GPA or above, she doesn't get any money.
Right.
You know, you can do if you want to be able to control people from the grave, and you'll be surprised how many people actually want to control people from the grave. A trust is the only mechanism you can use to do that.
This is good stuff. So far I've heard ladybird deed, I've heard a trust, I've heard that contracts supersede wills. I mean, this is totally invaluable. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I get into just some general conversation about real estate being a wealth builder?
I do want to say, you know, the affidavit of heirship, which you brought up earlier, is an option for some folks. Mm-hmm. But to your point, and you didn't get really into it, but it can get quite messy.
Yes.
And not just messy, we got to find 100 people, you know, half of them in California, 3/4 in New York, but messy, like old family drama. To your point, you know, these people don't like me. I've had people come in and we could use an affidavit of heirship, except that the deceased has been deceased so long that there are no longer witnesses around who could sign as to the deceased's history. And that is a necessity in an affidavit of heirship.
Yeah, and I've even ran into a situation where there's a homeowner who was so sick. They were living, but they were too really sick to make a decision on selling the property. And the title company said, look, we can't issue good title, not unless, you know, so who has power of attorney? Well, they couldn't issue a power of attorney because the person was too sick. So, Lauren, what do you do about that?
It's a difficult cycle, Roz. So I'm glad you brought that up. In that situation, now we have no power of attorney. The person doesn't have all of their capacities mentally to make these decisions. You have to go get a guardianship. And a guardianship is going to cost $6,000.
It is a lot.
At least $6,000.
And that's what happened. And that was going to eat up a lot of the proceeds. So,
Yes. And on top of that, find a lawyer who's willing to, okay, well, I'll get paid when the house gets sold. There's
right.
maybe a handful of us in the DFW area that are willing to do that kind of thing. So, power of attorney, to your point, and not just because Roz, we had a similar situation. Mom was really, really sick. Dad had always been super duper healthy. So, mom had signed POA to dad. He's her POA. And then all of a sudden, he dies. There
Mm,
was no backup POA because
wow.
everyone thought mom was going to die before dad because she was sick.
Mm,
And now we have to go do a guardianship for 3 months because she passed away after that. So her kids had to come up with $6,000 so that for 3 months she could get medical care and continue to stay in the nursing home she was in. I mean, it's tragic. It's terrible.
that
So
is
not
something.
only do you need a POA with one person doesn't need it, you need a backup just in case because you never do now.
Right, right. Goodness, Lauren, this has been totally amazing. And I just kind of want to reiterate while we're talking about generational wealth and, how to hold on for your heirs. I like that title, that subtitle. Can you dive into just a little bit of what you meant by that? Paint the picture, how to hold on for your heirs. What do you mean?
Well, it's a couple fold. Now, a lot of folks will call and say, oh, I just don't want the government to take it. Well, things don't just, it's called escheat, ESCHEAT. Things don't just escheat to the state, okay? It's a long process. So you're looking at the property taxes go unpaid for 3, 5, 7, 10 years. Then there's going to be a lawsuit. If y'all don't respond to the lawsuit and catch up on those taxes, all of you lose the property to the government. It makes me ill, physically ill, when I think about, especially on the east side and certain parts of Oak Cliff, where a traditionally overlooked family. This is maybe a grandma who had a job in the 50s and 60s and is facing adversity every day simply so she can buy a home, a $30,000 home she paid over 30 years and worked her booty off. And then she passes away, and now her kids don't do anything. They just don't do anything. And their lack of action then loses that property. It gets sold, it goes to the land bank, who knows? But if I was grandma and I had faced all that adversity so that I could have this thing and provide this thing to my family that could over time is really a huge asset, particularly, I'm just going to be rolling in my grave.
Yeah,
It makes me sick.
terrible.
The
Yeah,
last thing you want to do is lose real estate or wealth because of inaction. And
right.
every piece of real estate, particularly in Dallas and Fort Worth, is wealth, period.
Yes, it is, period. Which
Period.
segues me into just the general conversation about own where you lay your head. If you want to be an investor, start with your own home ownership. I know we have a lot of people who are like, well, I'm not ready, and oh, I'm not making enough, or oh, well, the truth is you're paying somebody else's mortgage. Here
Mhm.
we have a question. I've started talking to my father about things like this. Is there a certain age my dad stop paying his taxes on a home? I guess, is there a certain age that he will stop paying taxes?
No, nobody stops paying taxes. The only reason that you hear about people who didn't have tax payments was because they turned 65 when their property was worth literally nothing.
Well, that's what this person is saying. It says no taxes, never. Oh,
Yeah,
you did.
I wrote an answer.
Okay.
Taxes never go away.
Okay.
So no matter what, you're paying taxes. So the nice thing is to turn 65 in a down market when your house is worth nothing or less, and turn in that 65 because that creates a cap. So let's say on my 65th birthday, my house was worth 100,000.
Yeah.
Now it's worth 200,000. I'm only paying taxes on that 100,000, the cap.
The cap.
If I turn 65 in an up market and my house was worth 200,000, then I'm capped at 200. But if my house goes down to 100 in value, I'm still paying the full 100,000. So the reason you had a bunch of people who weren't paying taxes for a big chunk of 5 to 10 years is because they had bought up here and they got locked in up here at 65, and then the value dropped. Then the
Yeah.
value came back up steady over time, but a lot of these people had never even got back to where they were at 65.
Right. Got it.
So
Yeah. Thank you for that. But yeah, back to wealth building. Oh, we have someone just now coming in, and we're about to end soon. So we'll go ahead and let her come in. So yeah, owning where you lay your head. I think one of the fallacies or myths is, oh, I'm too young, I'm too young. The last time I checked, you could be 18 years old and sign your own documents to close on a property. And I just think, hello, Miss Tangi. I just think that it will be a great idea for parents who are having, juniors and seniors that are rising in high school, for them, if they're working, go ahead before they go to college, go ahead and buy that condo, that townhome, or that piece of property. Go on the deed, with them, go on the qualifying documents with them. And, if parents are concerned about, oh goodness, I don't want to get in over my head, well, only get something that you can afford to pay for. But get that junior, get that senior, get that person, your child that just turned 18, on a deed, so they can have ownership, and rent that property out so that they have income while they're in college. And, it starts from there.
I agree 100%, especially because you're going to build the young person's credit.
Yes.
But I'm going to add to that. Okay, so think about this. When you sell real estate in America, if you are a single person, as long as you don't have a capital gain of more than $250,000, you don't pay income tax.
Right.
If you lived in the property 2 of 5 years. So here's what I suggest. I go a step further. At 18, you have your child live there in college. They rent it out to their friends. They learn management, so on and so forth. They move out. You keep renting it to college students because that's money. Okay. You're going to have their parents are going to sign as guarantors.
Yes.
So you keep renting it out for decades. And then when you're ready to retire, you go from your big house, you sell that tax-free, you move into a smaller investment home, live there 2 of 5 years, sell that tax-free, move back down, and then maybe you end in the condo, right? Maybe that's going to be the last place you own. And then when you sell that, you can sell that tax-free. So if you can build up enough rental properties over time, you can fully fund your retirement tax-free, fully funded, tax-free.
There you go. That's the kind of plan. We plan the work and work the plan. And I know we're in a crisis, and I'm not going to get too much into that because I'm about COVID-19 to death here, but if people really want to use the equity that they have in their homes, again, homeownership is a wealth building because, you could take up to 80% of that equity and get a home equity line of credit, or you can do a cash out refi. You can take that money, either pay down debt, or if you see a hot property that you just can't live without, that is at a good price, there's your investment property. There's your down payment. You don't have to go and borrow, from anyone else. So I just love what we have done here today. I'm sure there's a few people on Facebook. Let me see if they have questions. Ms. Tangi, welcome. I'll unmute you. Do you have any questions, Tangi?
I do not. I'm just sorry that I've missed it. I've been working and I looked at the time like, oh my God, I missed it. But am I able to go back and listen to the replay?
Yeah, I'll send that out to you. Definitely. Miss Talina, do you have questions? I don't think she's
well, she did ask how much for a consultation. I usually charge a $25 consultation fee. I know it's $25. Folks would not show up if I didn't charge, so I started charging as low as I could. However, right now, because we're all locked down and people are going to show up because literally nothing better to do, I've gone back to doing free consultations. So if you have questions or you're interested in estate planning, real estate, taxes, any really legal matter, you can call us at 845-1200, and we'll do we'll set you up with a free consultation.
Awesome. I do have a few questions from Facebook. Thank y'all for chiming in. Can you borrow against a trust for investments?
Yes. Usually, as long as the trust allows you to. My trust language allows the trustee to, as long as the money is being used for the benefit of the beneficiary. So, if I passed away, my sister could buy rental properties, she could invest in the stock market, she could do whatever, as long as the goal is to enrich my children who are the beneficiaries.
Awesome. Yeah, that was all hearts for that one. And they said they love how to hold on to your heirs. Love that title. Next question from KO. A property in the area where they attend college is far cheaper than a room and board or an apartment for apartment life. Exactly, KO.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. AJ, thank you so much. AJ, my friend, says that it's great information, and I'm calling you today, AJ. And Tracy, hi Tracy, one of my real estate friend gurus. Can she assist someone to create an LLC?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I'm actually glad Tracy brought that up. So I work with a lot of real estate investors. And what I like to do, Roz, full circle here, I like to create a trust for them and their family. And then I have the trust own a series LLC, which then allows them to put each property into its own series and creates a legal protection around each one of those properties.
We're gonna talk.
Someone did ask me to repeat my number. It's 972-845-1200.
Okay, awesome. Did you hear that, Tracy? Excellent. All righty. So if there are no more questions, thank you so much for sharing the platform and just sharing this wealth of knowledge. You and I are going to have some conversations, not only from a personal standpoint, but to do more of these.
Good.
Can you share your YouTube or the platforms where you do workshops and seminars at this time?
So I am not very tech savvy, and I have learned to live stream, but figuring out how to actually get a link to that area is kind of not quite where I'm at yet. But if you check out my website, it's www.cadillaclaw.net, and I spell Cadillac with one L, CADILAC. If you check out my website, you should be able to find information there, or follow me on Facebook. I create events for the streaming. I'm going to have a week from today, a live streaming event about property tax protests. Protesting your property value is very important in terms of saving money over time and exponentially in real estate. And so I'm offering that for free, but I don't have the link yet. I'm meeting with someone in the coming days to kind of get that set up. And I'll have it on my Facebook page, which is Cadillac Law.
Awesome. Just to recap, oh my God, I've heard some awesome, awesome things here today. Ladybird deed, right? Get a trust, right? Keep the government out of your business as much as possible.
That's the number one thing, yes.
Yes. Remember that contracts, AKA beneficiaries on accounts at your banks, those are contracts. They supersede wills. Now, I'm not practicing law. You've heard it from the attorney herself. Go back and review your beneficiaries. So if you've divorced somebody, don't like somebody, or those kids start acting up and maybe they're in jail, I don't know, or on crack, I don't know. You need to go back and review those beneficiaries, right?
And Roz, we could make the trust a beneficiary, and if you have a child that's in and out of prison or facing drug issues, we can put into the trust that they need to do a urinalysis before they get payment, that they have to be out of prison for so many years or out of jail. Yes, girl, we can do anything.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm hearing that the trust is the way to go, especially if you have small children, because you can tell that trust to do anything, right? You can direct it to do anything you want with stipulations.
Mhm.
Thank y'all so much. KO said, oh my God, this just gave me so much help. Yay! That's what we aim to do. So I'm Roz B, as Roz B, Rosalind Booker, Principal Broker, CEO of R. Brook Realty. We are a full service real estate company. I always say we're not just real estaters, we're educators. You can join our show. We have a radio show that comes on Saturdays, 12 noon, 12 to 1. It's called Building Wealth Together. I have some wonderful co-hosts that are on that show with me. We got Chris, we got Rhonda, we got Melanie. They are going to be there talking about credit, insurance. Of course, we're talking about real estate and we're talking about money, mortgage matters, okay? Join us at KHVN 970 AM every first, second, third, and fourth Saturday, 12 to 1. Find us on Facebook, like that page. We will repeat, and I will put Lauren's information with Catalog Law in the comments section. And thank you, KO. I think you've done so as well. Well, thank you for joining us here, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.